Today we are going to talk about the most difficult subject in economics. We are not going to talk about how to get rich. That is the easy part. We are going to talk about how to not be poor. That is the hard part. Most people think poverty is a lack of money. They are wrong. Poverty is not a number in a bank account. Poverty is a gravitational force. It is a trap. It is a closed-loop system designed to keep you inside, spinning your wheels until you run out of energy and die. I call this the physics of poverty. If you want to understand why you are stuck, you have to understand rocket science. When a rocket tries to leave the Earth, it fights against gravity. To reach orbit, must hit a specific speed. We call this escape velocity. If the rocket uses 99% of the fuel required but does not hit that specific speed, do you know what happens? It does not get 99% of the way to the moon, it falls back to Earth and it crashes. This is exactly what happens to the working class. You work hard, you save a little bit of money, you try to climb out of the hole, you get halfway up the wall, and then something happens. Your car breaks down, you get sick, the rent goes up, gravity kicks in, and because you did not reach escape velocity, you fall all the way back to the bottom. Actually, you fall lower than before because now you are discouraged. Now you are tired. Now you have less fuel. This is why working a little bit harder does not work. In the physics of poverty, linear effort produces zero results. You need exponential effort to break the gravitational pull. You need to understand that the system is rigged against you. Not because of a conspiracy, but because of mathematics. Poverty is expensive. When you are poor, everything costs more. You cannot buy in bulk, so you pay a higher unit price for food. You cannot afford good boots, so you buy cheap boots that break every year. You cannot afford a good dentist, so you wait until the tooth rots, and you have to pay for a root canal. This is called the BIMS Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. The system charges you a penalty for being poor. It charges you late fees. It charges you overdraft fees. It charges you high interest rates because you are a risk. So you are running a race with a heavy backpack while the rich are running with the wind at their backs. And here is the most dangerous part. Poverty is not just external. It is internal. When you are in this trap for too long, it changes your brain. And it rewires your neural pathways. It puts you in a state of constant fight or flight. Your IQ literally drops. You stop planning for 10 years from now and you start worrying about 10 minutes from now. You become reactive, not proactive. This is the poverty loop. Low income leads to stress. Stress leads to bad decisions. Bad decisions lead to no assets. No assets lead to low income. Round and round it goes. A perfect vicious circle. But there is a way out. The laws of physics can be broken if you have enough force. In this video, we are going to reverse engineer this trap. We are going to look at the 5 specific chains that are holding you down. We are going to talk about the scarcity tax that drains your brain. We are going to talk about the dopamine trap that steals your cash. We are going to talk about the linear income trap that wastes your time. And finally, I am going to show you how to build your own engine. How to generate the escape velocity needed to leave the atmosphere of poverty forever. Once you break orbit, everything changes. The friction disappears. The silence comes and you can finally fly. But first, we have to survive the launch. Let's begin the countdown. Let us enter the first loop. I call this the scarcity tax. Most people think that if you give a poor person money, their problems are solved. But if you give a lottery winner millions of dollars, they are often broke again within 3 years. Why? Because poverty is not just a lack of cash. It is a lack of cognitive bandwidth. There was a famous study done by Sandhill Molly-Nathan at Harvard. He found that when your mind is consumed by financial stress, when you are worrying about how to pay the rent or how to fix the car, your effective IQ drops by 13 points. 13 points. That is the same effect as going without sleep for 24 hours or being a functional alcoholic. This means that when you are poor, you are literally operating with a damaged processor. You are trying to solve complex long-term problems with a brain that is in survival mode. You cannot see the future because you are too busy fighting the present. This is the scarcity trap. When you have limited bandwidth, you make bad decisions. You take the high-interest payday loan because you need cash now. You buy the unhealthy food because it is cheap and fast. Now you are not stupid. You are just exhausted. And the system knows this. The system exploits this. Let me tell you about the Vimes boots theory. It goes like this. A rich man can afford to buy a pair of high-quality boots for $50. Those boots will last him 10 years. So his cost is $5 a year. A poor man cannot afford $50. He only has $10. So he buys a cheap pair of boots. But the cheap boots fall apart after 1 year. So next year he has to buy another pair for $10. And the year after that, over 10 years, the poor man spends $100 on boots. The rich man spent $50. The poor man spent twice as much money and his feet were wet the entire time. This was the mathematics of being poor. It is expensive to be poor. You pay late fees. You pay overdraft fees. You pay higher interest rates. You buy small quantities of toilet paper because you cannot afford the boat pack. So you pay more per sheet. The system charges you a premium for your lack of capital. So how do we break this first loop? How do we stop the bleeding? And you need to build a buffer. Your first financial goal is not to get rich. It is not to buy a house. It is not to invest in the stock market. Your only goal is to save $1,000 or even $500. Put it in a separate account and do not touch it. This money is not for spending. This money is for buying back your brain. When you have a buffer, the car breaking down is just an inconvenience. It is not a disaster. When you have a buffer, you don't have to take the payday loan. You don't have to pay the scarcity tax. You stop reacting to emergencies and you start managing them. That $1,000 buys you something more valuable than gold. It buys you cognitive bandwidth. It restores your IQ. It allows you to sleep. It allows you to look up from the ground and see the horizon. Most people try to jump straight to investing. They skip this step. They are trying to build a skyscraper on a swamp. You must drain the swamp first. You must build the buffer. You must buy the boots that last 10 years. This requires sacrifice. It requires pain. For a few months, you might have to live like a monk, but you are doing it for a reason. You are buying your freedom from the scarcity tax. Now, we enter the second loop. This is the most emotional one. I call this the dopamine trap. You have probably heard the criticism. People say, if you are poor, why do you have the newest iPhone? Why do you buy expensive sneakers? Why do you eat out when you have groceries at home? It is easy to judge from the outside. But let us look at the biology. When you are trapped in the poverty loop, your life is painful. Your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, are constantly high. You feel small. You feel invisible. Your brain is screaming for relief. It is screaming for a win. So when you walk into a store and buy that new pair of shoes or that branded handbag, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. For a few minutes, the pain goes away. For a few minutes, you feel successful. You feel like you matter. This is not spending. This is self-medication. You are using consumption as an anesthetic to numb the pain of your reality. But here is the trap. The relief is temporary, but the debt is permanent. The dopamine fades in 20 minutes. The credit card bill lasts for 20 years. This is the fundamental difference between how the rich and the poor view money. The poor see money as a way to buy pleasure. The rich see money as a way to buy freedom. When a poor person gets $500, they think, what can I buy with this? When a rich person gets $500, they think, how can I invest this? We call this assets versus liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. If you buy a designer purse, that is a liability. It loses value the moment you walk out of the store. If you buy a share of stock, that is an asset. It works for you while you sleep. Most people in the low-income trap are drowning in liabilities. They have the nice car, the nice clothes, the subscriptions, the gadgets. They look rich, but they are bleeding wealth every single day. They are feeding the dopamine monster, but starving their future. So, how do we break this loop? How do we detox? You need to enter monk mode. This is a period of radical elimination. It is not forever. It is a temporary reset for your brain's reward system. For the next 6 months, you cut everything. You cancel Netflix. You stop eating out. You stop buying clothes. You drink water instead of soda. You walk instead of taking Uber. You strip your life down to the bare essentials: food, shelter, and basic transport. It will be boring. It will be hard. Your friends might laugh at you. But you have to tell yourself, I am not poor. I am in training. When you stop getting your dopamine from spending money, your brain will start to rewire itself. You will start to find pleasure in seeing your bank account grow. You will start to get high on saving. And that is a different kind of dopamine. That is the dopamine of control. Once you realize that you do not need the new phone to be happy, you become dangerous. You become free because the system can no longer manipulate you with shiny objects. You have broken the addiction. Now we enter the third loop. This is the one that keeps you tired. I call this the linear income trap. Most people are taught a simple equation for life. Time equals money. If you want more money, you have to work more hours. You get a second job. You work overtime. You drive Uber on the weekends. But there is a fatal flaw in this equation. Time is finite. You only have 24 hours in a day and you have to sleep. This means your income is mathematically capped. There is a ceiling you can ever break through no matter how hard you work. But your expenses are not capped. This brings us to the silent killer of the working class. Inflation. Inflation is a tax that is levied on people who sell their time. When the government prints money, prices go up. The price of bread goes up. The price of gas goes up. But do your wages go up? Not immediately. Wages are what economists call sticky. Your boss waits a year, maybe 2, before giving you a 3% raise. But by then inflation has already eaten 8% of your purchasing power. You are running up a down escalator and the escalator is moving faster than you can run. So you work harder, you sell more hours, you miss your kid's birthday, you ruin your health, and at the end of the year you are actually poorer than when you started. This is the definition of insanity. You cannot win a rigged game by playing by the rules. You have to change the game. You have to stop selling time and start selling value. How do you do this? You build a skill stack. Most people try to be the best at one thing. They want to be the best accountant or the best graphic designer. That is hard. That is crowded. The secret is to be pretty good at 2 or 3 unrelated skills and combine them. Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, was not the best artist. He was not the funniest writer and he was not the most experienced businessman. But he was good at all 3. And when he stacked them, he became unique. He became exponential. If you are a low-income worker, do not just go get a second job flipping burgers. That is just more linear income. Use your monk mode time to learn a second skill. If you are a construction worker, learn sales. Now you are not just a laborer. You are a contractor who can close deals. If you are a waiter, learn copywriting. Now you are not just carrying food. You are designing menus that sell high-margin items. You must become a double threat. When you stack skills, you detach your income from your hours. You become harder to replace. You become an asset, not a commodity. The market pays for rarity. It does not pay for effort. If you can be replaced by a teenager or a robot in a week, you will always be poor. You must build a mode around your income. And that mode is your skill stack. Now, we enter the fourth loop. This is the hardest chain to break. I call this the social gravity. There is a famous saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your 5 best friends are broke, you will be the 6th. If your 5 best friends are constantly complaining about the economy, you will be the 6th. If your 5 best friends have no ambition, you will be the 6th. Why? Because human beings are mimicking machines. We have something in our brains called mirror neurons. We subconsciously copy the behavior, the language, and the mindset of the tribe around us. If you are trying to escape poverty, but you are surrounded by people who have accepted poverty, you are fighting a losing battle. This brings us back to the crab bucket effect. If you put one crab in a bucket, it can crawl out. But if you put 10 crabs in a bucket and one tries to escape, the other 9 will grab its legs and pull it back down. They do not do this because they are evil. They do this because your success makes them feel unsafe. Your escape highlights their imprisonment. When you start your monk mode, when you start saving money, when you start learning new skills, your old friends will notice and they will not applaud you. They will attack you. They will say, "Why are you working so hard? Relax." They will say, "You think you are better than us." They will say, "The game is rigged. Why bother?" This is the sound of social gravity. It is the sound of the crabs pulling you back. If you listen to them, you stay in the bucket. You must understand that poverty is often a culture. It is a shared story of victimhood. The government is bad. The rich are evil. I have bad luck. This story is comforting. It absolves you of responsibility, but it keeps you poor. So, how do you break this loop? You must practice ruthless isolation. I'm not saying you have to be mean to your family or your childhood friends. But you have to protect your mind. You cannot afford to spend 3 hours a day listening to someone complain about their life. That is poison. You need to find a new tribe. Now you might say, "But Warren, I am poor. Rich people do not want to hang out with me." That is true. You cannot just walk into a country club. But you live in the age of the internet. You can find virtual mentors. You can spend your time with Charlie Munger. You can spend your time with Einstein. You can spend your time with the greatest minds in history. Read their books. Watch their interviews. Listen to their podcasts. Let their voices drown out the noise of your environment. When you read a biography of a billionaire, you are downloading their operating system into your brain. You are hacking your mirror neurons. You are choosing to be the average of the authors you read, not the people you live next to. This is how you escape the gravity of your zip code. You build a new neighborhood in your mind. And finally, we arrive at the 5th loop. This is the engine of wealth. I call this the compound void. Albert Einstein famously said, "Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." If you are trapped in the poverty loop, you are likely on the wrong side of this equation. You are paying compound interest. You have credit card debt at 20% interest. You have car loans. You have student loans. The math is working against you. Every day you wake up, you are poorer than you were the night before, even if you didn't spend a dime. You are paddling a boat upstream. And the current is stronger than your arms. The wealthy are on the other side. They earn compound interest. They have money in the S&P 500. They have real estate. They have businesses. Every day they wake up, they are richer than the night before, even if they slept all day. This is the snowball effect. If you want to escape low income, you must stop being the person who pays interest and start being the person who earns it. You must cross the line. How do you do this? You need to follow the 3 stages of escape. Stage 1, survival. This is where you stop the bleeding. You cut your expenses to the bone. You use your monk mode savings to pay off your high-interest debt. You kill the vampire that is sucking your blood. Stage 2, accumulation. This is where you start buying assets. And I do not mean a house or a car. I mean productive assets. You take $10 a day, just $10, and you put it into a low-cost index fund. You ignore the noise. You ignore the flashy trends. You just buy a piece of the American economy and let it grow. You are building your own snowball. It will look small at first. It will look pathetic, but you must trust the math. Stage 3, freedom. This is the moment when your assets generate enough cash flow to cover your basic survival needs. This is escape velocity. The moment this happens, you have broken the gravitational pull. You no longer have to sell your time to stay alive. You have options. You have dignity. Now, let us review the poverty loop. We talked about the scarcity tax. We talked about the dopamine trap. We talked about the linear income trap. We talked about the social gravity. And we talked about the compound void. These are the chains that bind you. But remember this, chains are made of metal, but they are forged in the mind. The door to the cage is open. It has always been open. The system wants you to stay inside. Your friends want you to stay inside. Your own fear wants you to stay inside. But you have the physics on your side. You have the map. You just need the courage to walk out. That's all. Thanks for watching.